Module 2 for the third quarter. It's already available on our Science B class card. It's actually the very first entry you see under the activities tab. So I hope you were able to um, check on this, or later on probably um, you can download your own copy. Yes, Nor, no worries. No problem with that. So let me now stop sharing. So again, please make sure that you download a copy of our module number 2 so that you know what to anticipate for our session for the last 2 weeks of the quarter, right? So let me now share my presentation for a while. Again, please pardon me if I cough every once in a while I am presenting. So let me first share my screen. Okay, I hope you can now see my presentation. So we are now on week 2 of our quarter, and we are now on session 1. So for this session, of course, hopefully, I know some of us are really having difficulties with some of the technical aspects, such as our microphone, audio, our softwares, and of course, our laptop gadgets, and so on. So hopefully, again, what is important is that you are here inside the Google Meet. You can perfectly hear me. Unfortunately, you cannot see me right now. And somewhat, you can also still, you can see my presentation on the screen. So for our session this afternoon, there are 6 parts. We will first establish the relationship of what we've learned from the first module and how it is connected to our new topic or our new module. And then we will try to establish as well the expectations that we will have for this module. And since this is already uh, the second module under biology, more or less, I assume that some of us here are more knowledgeable already of some certain topics, especially about the organ system. So later on, we'll try to test whether um, some of you have already at least have an idea of the organ systems that we are about to learn for this quarter. And then we, of course, we will have our discussion proper. And then if time allows, we will have our evaluation. And then, of course, we will have our heads up for what to expect for the entire week. So let us begin our session with engage. So as I've said, this is the part, excuse me, this is the part wherein we will establish the connection between what you already know from our previous module and then what our new topic, or how is this related, or how was it related to our new topic this afternoon. Sorry for that. Okay, so previously, our first module focused on the chemical reactions, specifically for photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So we learned for our first module that each of these processes are actually biological processes, and they are at the same time chemical reactions which involves different substances. And more importantly, what we've learned from the relationship between photosynthesis and cellular respiration is that they are two individual processes, two unique processes, but they are interrelated in such a way that one is dependent over the other, right? So at the end of our module 1, we were able to establish that the products from one process is actually the input or the requirement for the other process, and thus they are dependent on one another. So that this is actually also important, or these processes are also important in maintaining the flow of energy in the ecosystem or in the environment. Okay, so that's for our what we've learned from the first module. So how is this related to our module now? So if you remember that cellular respiration involves different processes, right? And this process enables animals, just like humans, to generate the energy that is recognized by the body, which is in the form of a chemical energy called adenosine triphosphate. So it's very important to know that this process is only made possible with certain or the presence of certain substances. And one of these important substances are, of course, excuse me, oxygen, sorry, sugar in the food that is present, or the sugar that is present in our food. And of course, as a byproduct, this will release carbon dioxide, which is expelled by the body. And then what is the crucial product here is the ATP, which is the form of energy that is again recognized by the cells. So, what do you think will happen if we don't get enough supply of energy for a few minutes? What do you think will happen to a person if that happens? What will happen to the person? Yes, anyone has an idea?
We will die.
Okay, especially if a person is not physically fit, and especially now that we are in a pandemic, and the pandemic is really targeting our respiratory system, which is, of course, the system that is responsible for the supply of oxygen in our body. So, of course, among all the basic needs of a human person for the person to survive, we can survive um for weeks without food, probably days without water, but we cannot survive more than few minutes siguro without oxygen. That's why for those who are struggling having struggling getting the enough oxygen, they need to be facilitated by some respirators or other devices that will help them get the oxygen that they need. So of course, as what was mentioned by Miles, if we don't get enough energy, oxygen, first the person will undergo kanang suffocation, murag malumos, and then eventually the person will um, uh, kanang experience injury sa ilang brain, especially, and then eventually this may cause also the death of the person. So that means that a constant supply sorry, of oxygen is needed not only for our survival, but it's also needed for the production of energy. So that means for us to be able to uh, have this constant enough supply of oxygen, we need to breathe and keep the circulation going so that we get the oxygen that we need and remove the unnecessary carbon dioxide from our body. So this is now where our second module comes in. So our second module now focuses on the relationship between two specific organ system, namely respiratory system and circulatory system. So later on, we will learn how they are interconnected and how they support one another in their individual functions. So our session for today is titled Interconnectedness of Circulatory and Respiratory System, and this is found on pages 3 to 19. That's for respiratory system, and 29 to 44 for the circulatory system. So please take note of the pages. So since we're dealing now with two organ systems. So let's first establish what our expectation for this afternoon. So first, we will learn some of the important terms and processes involved both in circulatory and respiratory system. At the same time, since this is an organ or these are organ systems, of course, organ systems involve different parts and some of the parts have their specific functions. So that's also part of our discussion. And then, of course, we'll try to um, connect the relationship on how respiratory and circulatory system work together to transport nutrients, gases, and molecules to and from the different parts of the body. So now, this is the part wherein we will try to test if you still remember anything from these two organ systems. So let me first share. Um, sorry. Okay, our task for this afternoon is very simple. Okay, let me press the start. So as you can see here, there are parts on the left side. And what we need to do is simply sort these parts, whether they belong under the respiratory system or if they belong under the circulatory system. So anyone who would like to participate in this segment of our session, kindly um, activate your raise hand button so that I can call your name and then you can participate on this part. Anyone? Yes, Miles. Miles raised his hand first. Yes, Miles.
Trachea is respiratory too.
Okay, thank you, Miles. Anybody else who wants to try? Yes, we have Candy.
Nose to respiratory.
Okay, thank you, Candy. Okay, next to Candy, we have Isa. Yes, Isa.
Heart to circulatory.
Okay, circulatory. Thank you. Okay, next to Isa, we have Aliana. Yes, Aliana.
Larynx to
La
respiratory system.
Larynx. Okay, respiratory system. Thank you for that. Let's have next, we have Rupert.
Alveoli to respiratory
Okay,
system.
alveoli, we have respiratory system. Okay, thank you for that, Rupert. How about Lawrence? Yes, Lawrence, you raised your hand. Okay, i-type lang, Lawrence. Okay. While we are waiting for Lawrence, anybody else who wants to... Okay, you have Ira later on, so let's just wait for Lawrence's answer. Okay, we have pharynx, and he chose respiratory. Okay, so let me drag it here first. There. So next we have, okay, the next person here, we have Ira. Yes, Ira.
Blood vessels to circulatory.
Okay, blood vessels, we have circulatory. Thank you for that. Okay, anybody else? We still have 5 parts here on the screen. Anyone who wants to try? Okay, you have Pauline. Yes, Pauline. Okay, thank you, Pauline. So diaphragm, that's under respiratory. Okay, I think Lawrence is again raising his hand. Yes, Lawrence. You may type your answer on the screen on the chat box. Then we have Rupert after that. Okay, we'll write them down. Okay. Let's have Rupert. Yes, Rupert.
Mouth to respiratory system.
Okay, mouth. Okay, let me drag it here. Okay, last 3. Anybody else who wants to try? We have bronchi, blood, and bronchioles. Again, we have bronchi, blood, and bronchioles. Anyone who wants to try to sort these last 3 parts, whether they are under the respiratory or circulatory system? Anyone? Yes, Miles.
Ang blood is the circulatory system and ang bronchi o bronchioles is the respiratory.
Okay, so Miles already sorted the last three. Thank you for that. Let us now sort them all. Okay, let us now submit our answer and let's check if we were able to um, get it correctly. Okay, so for let me now show you the answers. So congratulations, all of us here, those who have participated, got it correctly. So we're able to sort the different parts according to their organ system. So we have here the respiratory. Under this is, or under this are the mouth, nose, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, diaphragm, larynx, and pharynx. While for the circulatory system, only have three here, but later on we will learn that even if there are only three parts, these are only major parts. Later on we'll learn that there are different parts involved in the heart, the different types of blood vessels, at the same time the different blood components. So let me now go back to my presentation. Okay, so now that we're done with um the the explore part, I sorry, the activating prior knowledge, we will now proceed to our discussion proper. So, as I've mentioned, there are two major organ system for this particular module, specifically the circulatory system and the respiratory system. So we have here the heart, and which is considered to be the primary or the major organ responsible, or is considered to be the primary organ under the circulatory system. Now, the heart is actually considered as a machine that pumps or generates pressure so that blood will flow throughout the different parts of the body. And then we have the lungs, which is the primary or the major organ system or organ for the organ system respiratory. Now, this is actually the organ that is responsible for the inhalation and exhalation of certain gases in and out from our body. So, we will now proceed to our video presenting to us the different organ system. So, while we are watching, let's take note of the following questions. So, what is the main function or job of the circulatory system? At the same time, excuse me, what is the main function or job of the respiratory system? And lastly, how do these two body systems work together? So, let me now share the video for a while.
In today's lesson, we'll be looking at the circulatory system and the respiratory system and the role that they have in helping our bodies function as they should. The circulatory system, you may also hear it referred to as the cardiovascular system, but it has a very important job, and ultimately that job is to move blood throughout our bodies. This blood's so important because it acts as almost the highway, so to speak, that carries the oxygen, the nutrients, all the things to our cells that they need to survive and to carry out the life functions in order for our bodies to work as they should and for us to stay alive and healthy. At the center of the circulatory system is the pump that makes everything work, and that's our heart. And the heart's what we call an involuntary muscle. It's not something we have to think about to make it work. It constantly beats throughout our life, and it's controlled automatically by our bodies. And every time the heart beats, it's actually pumping blood through our veins, our arteries, our capillaries to the individual cells to give them the nutrients and to give them the oxygen and other things that they need to survive. As the blood travels, it's traveling through blood vessels to deliver the things that it brings, the oxygen, the nutrients, and the blood also has an important job of removing waste from the cells. Our body has 3 different types of blood vessels in it, and those are the veins, which carry the blood to our heart, the arteries, which carry the blood away from our heart to the cells, and then we have what's called capillaries. And these capillaries are tiny little blood vessels that branch off all throughout our body. They're so small that many of them we can't even see, but they actually carry blood to the individual cells in our bodies. So these capillaries, even though we don't see them and we don't think a lot about them, they're very, very important. The blood itself is not just a red liquid, it's actually made up of several different components as well. And each of these different parts of our blood has a different job that it does for us. We actually think of our blood as a red liquid, but the liquid portion of the blood is what we call plasma. And it's actually more of a clear liquid that actually transports things through our circulatory system. The red blood cells are what gives the blood its color, and the red blood cells have a very important job, and that's the job of transporting nutrients and transporting oxygen to our cells. The red blood cells will actually contact every cell in our body. They'll essentially drop off this oxygen, and they also remove waste. They'll take away carbon dioxide, which is what we exhale when we breathe out, but that's removed from our body to our lungs by the red blood cells. Another type of blood cell is the white blood cell, and white blood cells also have a very important job. They fight infections and diseases in our bodies. The final part of the blood that we want to talk about is what's known as blood platelets. And when we look at them, they almost look like little sea urchins or something, but their job is to cause blood to clot. If you cut yourself or scrape your knee or something, you'll bleed for a little while, but then that bleeding will stop because the blood platelets actually kind of link together to form a barrier to keep us from bleeding when we shouldn't. As we mentioned earlier when we talked about the red blood cells, it is important to remember that the circulatory system, even though it's a transport system to take things to our cells, it also transports things away from our cells. So the circulatory system is also constantly working to transport waste from the cells to the kidneys so that we can remove it from our bodies. The second body system we're going to talk about today is the respiratory system, and I like to include this in the same lesson because of the fact that the respiratory and circulatory systems work so closely together to do their jobs. We'll see throughout this unit how many of the different systems in our body are interconnected and dependent on one another. When we talk about respiration, it's maybe a big word, but basically all it is just the idea of breathing. When we breathe in, when we breathe out, that's respiration. Every time we inhale air, we breathe in air into our lungs, we're taking in the oxygen out of the air, which is what our cells need to survive. And every time we exhale or breathe out, we're getting rid of that waste, that carbon dioxide that's produced by our cells. The respiratory system's made up of the main organ, which is the lungs, but also the pathways that lead to the lungs. Things like the trachea, the bronchi tubes that go through to deliver the oxygen from the air to our lungs where it can be absorbed into our blood. It is very important to remember, though, as we mentioned earlier, how these two body systems are related. Even though our respiratory system is what's taking in the oxygen, it's actually the circulatory system that has that very important job of getting that oxygen to our different cells in our body. And as we exhale that carbon dioxide, that waste from our body, it's again the important job of the circulatory system to transport that waste from the cells back to the lungs so it can be removed. So it's very important not only to understand the function of the individual system, but also how these two transport systems work together to help our body and to help keep us healthy.
Now that you have watched the video regarding the circulatory and respiratory system, let's now go through each of the guide questions and let's try to answer them. So number one is, what is the main function or job of the circulatory system? So as was presented from the video, that it is the system that is responsible to making sure that blood and and the other materials that are suspended in the blood will move throughout our body, and that of course includes the different gases, nutrients, and other substances. So blood carries oxygen, nutrients to the different cells of our body. At the same time, it's also the vehicle that enables us to remove or expel the unnecessary materials such as carbon dioxide and other wastes from our cells. So the next question is, what is the main function or job of the respiratory system? So if the circulatory system is responsible for making the blood flow, and one of that one of the major component, or one major important component that the blood carries is oxygen, the organ system that supplies the oxygen for the circulatory to distribute is our respiratory system. So it is actually the system that enables us to allow gas exchange. That's the process of involves inhalation, at the same time exhalation. So it allows our bodies to take in the necessary oxygen. To take note, the gas that we actually inhale is not pure oxygen. Only a portion of that is oxygen, and it's a combination of different gases and some pollutants. Um, while this system is also responsible for expelling or removing the unnecessary waste product, which is in the form of carbon dioxide, which is the product of cellular respiration. Now, carbon dioxide is a waste product that is removed from the body when we exhale. So, humans, just like any other forms of animals, must undergo gas exchange to stay alive. Even those who are living in aquatic areas, they still have developed special respiratory system that enables them to survive being in the aquatic areas, but they have a modified respiratory system for that. And number three, the final question, how do these two body systems work together? So imagine a factory, okay? So a factory is, of course, responsible for the production of um, products or goods. But people, we don't go to the factories for us to get the product. Where do we go? For us to, example, if you want to buy something, do we go to the factory? Where do we purchase our products?
stores,
Stores, right? So imagine that kind of relationship. So if we have factories as the production line, we need our stores to provide us our necessary needs. And um, one possible one actually problems that Americans are experiencing, or the American economy is experiencing right now, is their problem on transportation of goods. So because they don't have enough people to man this industry right now. But my point is that for us to get the goods or the products that we need, they must be transported to us so that they are readily available for us to purchase. So with that scenario, it's similar to the relationship between the circulatory and respiratory system. So your circulatory system makes sure that the necessary supply, ingredients, materials are accessible for the cells, they deliver it, the circulatory delivers it, and what supplies the circulatory, the necessary goods, is our respiratory system. Of course, in the just one specific good, and that is in the form of oxygen. The nutrients that is, of course, um, what do you call this, provided by the digestive system. But more or less, it's the same concept that one provides the need for the other, so that the other organ system can function its job. So the human respiratory system works together so that the supply, constant and continuous supply of oxygen and removal of carbon dioxide is done. So, while the former deals with the air and the latter with the blood, they work together seamlessly by coordinating their functions of many parts of each system. So the circulatory and respiratory system absorbs the oxygen from the air, and transfer it to all parts of the body, while absorbing carbon dioxide from the body and releasing it back to the air or to the atmosphere. So how do these two body systems work together? So of course, that's part of inhalation. It starts with inhalation. The circulatory system interacts with the circulatory system to transfer oxygen from fresh air to red blood cells in the lung, while also releasing carbon dioxide from the blood into the air. And when the person exhale, this is used uh, the used air, meaning the air that is already um, rich in carbon dioxide, will leave the body. The heart pumps the blood with oxygenated blood. So when you talk about oxygenated blood, this is the blood that actually is considered as oxygen-rich blood, and the oxygenated blood cells from the lungs throughout the body, where the oxygen is released into the cells while carbon dioxide is absorbed. And of course, the pumping of the heart is actually a two cycle. Later on, we'll learn the full cycle of the heart. The heart pumps blood. The sorry, the heart pumps the used blood. When you say use, this means that it's now carrying deoxygenated blood, or blood that is already considered as oxygen depleted or oxygen poor blood, throughout the different veins to the lungs, and the cycle repeats itself. So one important thing to note is that it was also mentioned from the video that the heart is actually a very special organ that is made up of cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscles are actually involuntary muscles, meaning they are not controlled by our consciousness. Rather, they are controlled by our autonomic part of the brain, meaning it's not something that we need to be conscious, we need to be aware, or that's something we need to control 24/7. Okay, so that means even if a person is unconscious, even if a person is injured, even a person is sleeping, the heart is still functioning. Of course, that is if the person is not really injured, in the sense na na-injured sa brain, or the injury is on the heart itself. Now, the blood travels to our blood vessels. So imagine blood as a vehicle. So vehicles, for them to have a smooth and seamless transportation, they need to have roads, and that is the function of our blood vessels. And not all roads are the same. Some roads are narrow, some roads are wide, some roads are easily accessible, and some are restricted. So we have veins that carries blood towards the heart. We have arteries that carries blood away from the heart, and then we have capillaries. These are the smaller forms of blood vessels, which allows mixing of oxygen poor and oxygen rich blood in the individual cells. Now, for the blood components, we have the plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. So we will learn more of these in the coming days. So we will have this dedicated discussion for heart, blood, and blood vessels. So do you have any questions so far based on the introduction of the respiratory and the um, circulatory system? So if you don't have any questions, let's end our session with a very simple game, right? So I'll be needing your help here. So let me, sorry, uh, for a while. Okay, let me play as a guest. Okay, so what we will do is you will help me answer the questions here. So, ay, sorry. No. So I'm only using, okay, here. Okay. For those who can join in, you may now join the game. The game pin is already on the screen. Again, I understand some of us have limited internet connection, so only those who can join. But if you want, I can also play as your avatar for the rest of those who cannot join using the game pin. So just dictate to me your answer so that I can again act as the avatar for those who want to still join but cannot join because of limited internet connection. Okay, let me get this. Okay, we have one Rupert. So let me log in here. Sorry. I need to log in. No, kahootit.com. Kahootit. Kahootit. Ay, sorry. Okay, we have Miles. Okay, again, I will play as an avatar for those who want to still participate but cannot participate because of the limited internet connection. Okay, so I think we will now start. Again, if you want to join or if you want to give your answer, just message me here through the chat box. So let's start. So what is the major organ of the circulatory system? Blood, heart, blood vessels, or the nerve? Okay, I'll answer for the rest. Okay, everybody got it correctly. All right, let's go to the next question. Okay, so let's have the next. What are the major organs of the respiratory system? Nose and lungs, nose, mouth and lungs. Okay, what do you think is the answer? All right. Let's go to the next. Okay, so far Rupert is leading the. Okay, let's go. Which statement is false about the heart? Its beating does not require conscious thought. Its action is controlled by the nervous system. It is involuntary. It is voluntary and pumps blood voluntarily. Okay, so the answer is it is voluntary. It should be involuntary. It pumps blood involuntarily, right? Because it's an involuntary, or the heart is made up of involuntary muscles. All right, let's go. All right. Sorry. Question number 4. What is the major what is the majority what is the majority component of the blood? Is it the plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, or platelets? Okay, we have red blood cells. Okay, let's check. It's plasma. It's actually the liquid component of the blood. Okay, let's go. Next time we have Kate leading the pack. Okay. The human respiratory and circulatory system works together to supply body with oxygen and get rid of carbon waste. Carbon as a waste. True or false? So this is a true or false statement. Okay, the answer is false. This is actually a trick question. Get rid of carbon dioxide. Carbon is an element. Carbon dioxide is a compound, at the same time, a gas. So that's a trick question. Carbon dioxide is the name of the chemical. Oh, okay, let's go to the next question. Question number 6. What is the main function or job of the circulatory system? To move blood throughout the body, to carry oxygen and nutrients to different cells of the body, remove carbon dioxide and other waste from the cell, or all of the above. Okay, all of the above, and that is indeed correct. All right, let's go to the next. This time we have Miles leading the scoreboard. Okay, what is the main function of the respiratory system? Choose the best answer. Allows our body to expel carbon dioxide, allows our body to take in oxygen, allows gas exchange, allows our body to take in oxygen and carbon dioxide. Okay, the answer is it allows gas exchange. This actually entails taking in oxygen and the removal of carbon dioxide. Okay, so we still have Miles. Okay, another true or false statement. The lung contract to breathe in oxygen and out, expand to breathe out carbon dioxide. Is it a true or a false? Okay, it's a false. Later on, we'll understand what do we mean by contract and expand, and how does the relationship of the diaphragm and the lungs um, makes the taking in and breathing out of carbon dioxide possible. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, we now have Rupert. Okay, we are now to the second to the last question. Blood would still be useful without the respiratory system. True or false? Blood will still be useful without the respiratory system? Okay, the answer is false. False. Definitely, because again, if we don't have one organ system, we are already designed perfectly in such a way that each organ system is, of course, essential for our survival. Okay, we're now down to the last question. The circulatory and respiratory system work together to circulate blood, oxygen, carbon dioxide throughout the body. True or false? Okay, it's actually false because um, it's actually not blood because the circulation of blood is primarily and solely for circulatory. But if we remove that blood and change that into nutrients, that would make the statement correct, right? So let's check now. Okay, congratulations. We have Kate on the third rank, followed by Rupert, and we have okay, Miles on our first rank. Okay, congratulations. Okay, so let me go back to the presentation for a while. So sorry for the delay. Okay, so we're actually down to our last part of our discussion. We're now on the heads up. So take note of the session for this week. So hopefully everybody is of course safe and okay that we can really finish what we intend to accomplish for the week. So we're already done with session one. Um, So for tomorrow, we will have session two. The title of the session is Breathe In and Breathe Out. So that means this particular session is intended for the respiratory system. And then for session three, we have Transversing the Body's Highways. That's sorry, that's for the circulatory system. And then lastly, for session four will be our quiz for the week. Okay. Any concerns or questions regarding what to expect for next week? Any concerns? Wala. Okay, I think that ends the presentation for this afternoon. Okay. Before I leave the Google Meet, I believe some joined a little later than the usual because of some of their concerns. So let me verify them before I go. Um, I believe Vaughn is already here. Vaughn, kindly verify if you're here.
Yes, sure.
Okay, there, I can hear Vaughn. How about Nor? Nor, are you here?
Yes, sure.
Okay, there, I can hear Nor. How about Marinel? Marinel, are okay, there, Marinel is already there. So that means Popoy is the only person who is not yet inside our Google Meet. Okay? So any concerns, 9H, regarding the class or any subject area in particular, or any concerns regarding the class or relationship among the students in the class? Naabatay concerns, class officers, before I go? Wala. Again, don't worry regarding Popoy. The teachers are already working together with his guardian. So we're trying to find ways where we can help him. So rest assured that this concern is not just being kind of taken for granted. Okay, so of course we don't want you to get involved so much that because I know that you are also concerned with your own own schooling. So wala na ba tay concern? So before I go, let me remind two important things. Number one, again, the module number two is already available on our SILID. Please go to our Science B class card. Please make sure to download your own copy. The module is designed in such a way that you can still use it as a guide for our session. The links are embedded within the module so that you can follow along the discussion. And then, secondly, please take note. Let's please slowly slowly make some efforts or preparations in relation to our class pictures. Again, the details regarding the technicalities such as the background, the what do you call that? The pixels. Was it the pixels? The orientation. At the same time, the deadline is already on our homeroom class card together with the Google Drive link for the formal and the informal post. Okay? So wala na concerns, 9H. So I
None.
think that, okay, thank you, Miles. So I think that's it. Take care, everyone, and stay safe. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
sir.
Bye, chair.